Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. For the first, let me introduce myself. My name is Siti Hasana. I'm from 4th group. In this video, we are going to talk about language change. Enjoy this video. So, what is the language changes? The definition language changes is phenomenon of permanent change in the feature and use of language over time. Or we can say is variations over times in the language feature. But modern linguistics typically does not support this concept, since from a scientific point of view such innovation cannot be judged in terms of good or bad. Some commentators using corruption levels to suggest that language changes are decreased in the language quality, especially when the change comes from human error or perspective use is not recommended. There are causes of the language change. The first is economy. Whilst there are the communication goal to those aimed at involving cost, exchange, and benefit, speech communities tend to convert their speech as efficient and effective with little effort. Number 2 is expressiveness. New words and contractions are continuously employed to revive that intensity because common or overused language tends to lose its emotions or rhetorical intensive over time. Number 4 is analogical in language change. Analogical change occurs when one linguistic sense in change in either form or meaning to reflect another item in the language system on the basis of analogy or perceived similarity. Number 4 is language contact. Occur when speakers of two or more languages or variety interact and influence each other. The study of language contact is called contact linguistics. When speakers of different languages interact closely, it is typical for their languages to influence each other. In simply, we can say language contact is word and contractions are borrowed from one language into another. Number 5 is cultural environment. As a culture involves new place, situations, and object inevitably enter its language, whether or not the culture encounters different people. Number 6 is the cultural environment. Regardless of whether the culture meets different people or not, when a culture grows, place, situations, and new objects must enter the language. Number 7 is migrations or movement. Speech communities moving into a region with a new or more complex linguistic situations will influence and be influenced by language change. They sometimes even end up with entirely new languages, such as pigeons and coralites. Number 8 is imperfect learning. Occurs regularly in one part of society, such as immigrant groups, in which the minority language from substratum and the changing from can eventually affect the use of the majority. Number 9 is the last, society prestige. Language may not only change the word feature that have more society prestige, but also anywhere from one's negative prestige, as in the case of the loss of authority in the British received pronunciation accent.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Let me introduce myself. My name is Amelia Febrianti. Here, I want to explain the title of major in Group 4, language change. As for this type of language change, Marcel John detailed the different types of language change under the title of all external evaluation and the internal evaluation of language. The first is lexical change. The change in lexicon from diachronic part of the etymology, which is the introduction of new words into English, helping to make it reachable in the study of language change, where new words are borrowed from the other language and recurrently until new meanings in English language result. The second is phonetic and phonological change, involving the development of phonetic and phonologics. The change of a word turns from the time to time. This change is a relative brief how media view in the past record their words and could see the difference between the 1914th and 1915th newspaper and today pronunciation. The third is spelling change. Spelling change is also a change in language development and has occurred from countries because language has no fixed orthographic system and ensuring handwritten manuscript that frequently indicate the word spelled according to distinct pronunciation, territory, and personal preference. The fourth is semantic change. Semantic change are shifting meanings of words that exist. A basic type of semantic change includes there are figuration where the connotation of a theme become more negative of involvement, where the connotation of the themes become more positive of expression, where the theme again potentially use this subtext, and where the potential use of a theme is complicated can also, in the breadth of its semantic domain, narrow down and word limits the alternative meaning while expanding the new meaning to it. Per example, all English hand ons refer to any dog, while in modern English indicate only a particular types of a dog. On other hand, the word dog itself has been extended from the ancient root of a donkey, a particular name, to the general term for all domestic pets. The last is syntax change. The change of syntax is the evolution of the syntax structure of natural language over time. The change in syntax is the biggest change in any particular language or reference to major change caused by chroniization of replication can occur either in syntax or vocabulary change. In syntax can also be pure language, whether independent in syntax component or the final result of phonological or morphological change.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I'm from Group 4. My name is Anis Khumera. I will explain about how change spreads. First, from group to group. Changes spread simultaneously in different directions, although not always at the same rate in all directions. Social factors such as age, status, gender, and region affect the rate of change and the direction of the wave is rolling the fastest. The web-based metaphors a useful way of visualizing the spread of change from one group to another. In a conversational community, different sets of web-based interests belong to certain age groups, region, and social groups at the same time. A change can spread to one of these dimensions and into other groups. Linguistic change infiltrates groups from the worst marginalized between social original groups through middle people who have contacts in more than one group. These people appear to be acting as stock workers or linguistic entrepreneurs. Second, from style to style. One theory of how change spreads present the process as very symmetric process. In specific individual speech, this indicates a change sparing from one formal style to another, for example, while at the same time spreading from one individual to another in a social group and from a social group from to another group to another. For example, the presentation post-vocal pronunciation in New York, for example, is first the most vocal style of young people in the most social status group in society. It then spreads to a less formal style for the group, while also expanding to the most formal style of the other groups, such as a parental speech and speeches of people from lower social groups. Third, from word lexical divisions. In many cases, voice changes not only spread from one person to another and from another style to another, they also spread from one word to another. Changes in voice usually spread through different words by one by one. This is called lexical diffusions. When voice change begins, all words with a specific vowel do not change at once in the community language. For example, in S. Angelia, the vowel in had to be changed before the incoming vowel. Even though they all start with the same vowel and all ended up with different vowels and were identical in the next point.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Siti Nur Ilmiah and I will explain about sociolinguistics of language change. The sociolinguistic Jennifer Coates, taking after William Leboeuf, depict etymological alter as happening within the setting of etymological heterogeneity. She clarifies that linguistic alter can be said to have taken place when a modern phonetic shape utilized by a few subgroups inside a discourse community is received by other individuals of that community and acknowledged as the norm. Ken and Patton give a quantitative investigation of 20th century Turkish writing utilizing 40 books of 40 creators. Utilizing weighted slightly square replace and sliding windows approach, they appear that as time passes, words in terms of both token in content and sort in lexicon have gotten to be longer. This shows that the increment in words length with time can be ascribed to the government-initiated dialect change of the 20th centuries. This change points at supplanting remote words utilized in Turkish, particularly Arabic and Persian-based words, since they were in large part when the change was started. Okay, I think enough for me. Sorry for my mistake. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.